100%. Let's go.
We're recording. All right. Today's express session. Let's crack on. So yesterday, when I was thinking about what we should discuss, I thought, let's tackle the question of how does a person go from surviving to thriving in their lives, right? And to help answer this question, I'm just going to define what those two things mean to me, right? So surviving is when you are reacting to the world around you. You are not setting the direction, you're being pushed in the direction. You're not thinking further than just this moment or this day. You're just trying to get through it. Whereas thriving to me is where you have a sense of abundance in your life. You have this, I don't want to say excess, but you're in a position where you're not just thinking about the moment, you're thinking about tomorrow, you're thinking about a week from now. You're doing more than what's just the bare minimum, right? So, in my mind, how do you think a person can move from this state of survival and scarcity to thriving?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Really good question, eh? And I mean, I won't I wouldn't consider myself as someone who has completely mastered that. I mean, I'm
Mm,
still a learner of life myself. But I would say the two differences between the two are in the way you think. Like, I mean, I like how you obviously defined it according to you, right? One is literally just thinking for today, and the other one is strategic thinking. And I think when you adopt the habit of strategic thinking, you naturally go beyond doing what is necessary for today. And I think in doing that, you are more motivated to do more than the bare minimum,
mm,
to go above and beyond because of your mindset. And I think when you have a strategic mindset, you are blessed with a vision
yeah,
of which when you get to see over and over and over in your mind, you then become more creative, more ambitious, your energy levels are higher,
yeah,
and that sense of abundance that you spoke about earlier on becomes a reality now, even though you may not be where you see yourself being, but you already experience it because of the way you think. So
and
yeah, for me, that's the difference between the two. One is merely just getting by,
yeah,
and the other one is, conditioning your mind to be in a state that your actions are heavily influenced to go above and beyond so that you can have the future that you want and in turn thrive in the future.
mm,
And yourself, how do you see the difference between the two and how do you get by?
yeah. Look, I agree exactly with what you said about still figuring this one out, and also I think it's something that ebbs and flows, you
Yeah.
you I think survival is not a default mode of operation, but I think it's an easier state to be in than in the state of thriving, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting when I was thinking about this concept, I just keep going back to this concept of, when human beings were forming and there was this shift from like gathering and foraging and hunting to preserving and building storehouses and preparing for the winter ahead.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a similar mindset to the mindset of thriving. Thriving is like, okay, let's not just think about the needs of the moment. Let's think about what is gonna be a good action today that's gonna make my life 6 months from now better.
Yeah.
Um, but to answer the question of how do we move from surviving to thriving, because when you're surviving, it's hard to think about anything else. It's like you're on the ropes and you're trying to just dodge the punches that
Yeah.
feel like it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
I think momentum is the big thing. Momentum. And to go from a position of surviving to thriving and finding that momentum starts with small steps. and eating the elephant one bite at a time. Because you cannot go from 0 to 100 in a moment. It's something that you have to, you got to move that boulder up the hill slowly but surely. And then when you
Mm.
reach that point of momentum shift where the ball is now going for itself, you're not pushing it anymore, then it's a lot easier. But
Yeah,
you've got to be patient and you have to be very kind to yourself when you're trying to shift from survival to thriving, you know.
100%.
Um, yeah,
And I think to add on to that, I mean, like if that speaks to the law of motion, right? Like I think going in between the two states requires consistent effort,
yeah,
in the way you think. Because like I always say, how you behave is heavily influenced by how you think.
mm-hmm,
It's one thing to try pursue a certain action, but if your mind is not correct, it's only a matter of time until you get out of that state of wanting to pursue that action. So, it ties back to the law of hypnotic rhythm by Napoleon Hill,
yes,
where you repeatedly have to do something for it to become fixed in time and therefore automatic and habitual in nature. And
absolutely,
and I think that's at the core of going from surviving to thriving, because I think once you're thriving, a lot of things happen.
absolutely, yeah,
You know, everything feels easier, not because you are working harder, but because you're in momentum and
yes,
nature has taken its course, where you actually are doing some things on autopilot.
yeah,
And another thing I've noticed about life is that when you're doing tasks in two different states, the experience of the task is very different.
oh, big time,
So sometimes when you're doing something because you have to survive, if the meaning behind the survival is a lot to you, then cool, it's a great task.
yeah,
But there's sometimes when you're just doing it because you have to and not because you want to, you know? And I think that's when a task becomes difficult, and that's when some people just do stuff because they have to survive. It's not purposeful to their agenda.
absolutely,
However, when you try to find purpose in what you're doing and you do it in a joyful manner, the task somehow is easier,
it's lighter,
it's lighter,
yeah,
you're able to do it better, your thinking and your energies are aligned to doing that task to the best of the ability. And
yes,
through that, you're then able to thrive.
I love
So
that,
yeah, that's just my
love
two
that.
cents on that topic.
So well said, T. And while you were speaking, I wanted to add like two things. One, so this is like a complementary thing to the law of hypnotic rhythm from Napoleon Hill. And I've spoken about before on the podcast, but the four phases of competence, where you start off, you are unconsciously incompetent. So you're not
Mm,
aware of it. Then you become consciously incompetent. So you suck,
mm,
but you know that you suck, which is good.
yeah,
Then
yeah.
consciously competent and then unconsciously competent. And
Mm,
the phases of moving from surviving to thriving is the same. So in the
yeah,
beginning, when you realize you're just surviving, it's tough because you're like, oh, geez, I feel like I'm just living moment to moment here, and I'm not dictating to the day how I want things to go.
yeah,
But if
yeah,
you work at it hard enough, you can get yourself in a position, like you said, where you're doing tasks for purpose and not just for the need, and you're living in an elevated state of consciousness and
yeah.
emotional energy. There's a richness to your life that is lacking when you're just surviving. And the second thing I wanted to say is like, this whole concept, the whole Thrive and Survive research hub concept was inspired by this question that I was asking myself, and also asking myself for the people that I was witnessing around me, because I felt like I saw so many people that were just surviving.
Mm,
I thought to myself, and this is something that I'm almost talking about it every day with the people around me. Tomorrow is really not guaranteed. It's
mm,
not guaranteed. Every moment that you have with somebody is potentially the last moment that you'll have with them.
yeah.
And I know that sounds like a morbid concept, but it's a reminder of having a sense of urgency. Like you
Yeah.
better start enjoying yourself
Yeah.
because life is short, and
Yeah.
even if you live a long life, it's not that long. It doesn't feel that
Yeah.
long.
100%.
Now, what's the number one thing that people who are in the older years say? They say, "Where have the years gone?"
Yeah.
That's the question they always ask. So, like, yes, we have stuff to do. We must work, and
Mm.
we must reap. We must sow, and then we can reap. But
Yeah.
we have to enjoy ourselves along the way, you know. Otherwise, what's the
100%. And then I like how you mentioned the main thing there being stage, right?
hmm,
And purpose. And I think a lot of the time people confuse purpose with your life purpose, right? I think the reality is that some people find their purpose at 50, 55. Some people find it at 15. Some people find it at 20.
yeah,
It's something that I don't think you can rush. You must seek it. And when the student is ready, it shall appear. But the nice thing about life is that you can make life purposeful
yes,
by intentionally trying to make an impact. A good example I will use is if you work in an organization and the organization has a purpose, if you align yourself and your efforts with that organizational purpose, you will feel some sense of joy after a long while of doing it, provided that the environment is also good,
yeah, and it's a good
right?
purpose.
Exactly. But the reality is that a lot of people don't align themselves with the purpose of what they're doing. They just look at the task at hand and they look at it as a way of making money
Yeah,
and they leave it there. It
yes,
doesn't transcend beyond the action or the task at hand. And I think when you do things in such a way that you don't transcend beyond what you're doing and look into the meaning of it overall, right now and beyond your existence, you then fail to find the joy in what you do.
absolutely. And I think that what you said there speaks to this thought process of, what you do matters. What you do matters. It's so meaningful what you do actually. And
Yeah,
work, yes, 100%, but even every interaction that you have with a
yeah,
person, it's an opportunity to give a gift from your
yeah,
presence. And
100%.
and you've spoken so many times about cultivating a pleasant personality, and sometimes I think people underestimate how powerful it is to just
Yeah,
be nice and kind and warm.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you might be the only nice person that person sees the whole day. Everybody
yeah,
else is mean to them, but you shared a quick laugh, you gave them a
yeah,
smile, and that's your impact on the world. That's your legacy.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so it's so good to think about that because when we're surviving, we're just thinking, I can't worry about this person and how they feel. I don't have time for that. I don't have energy.
yeah,
I'm got so much to do. I'm so stressed, blah 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 blah. Like you are overwhelmed and you are not thinking about the importance of the moment and the importance of being kind and that is what thriving is. It's
yeah,
elevating yourself, creating a space between the minimum and your potential and going for that potential. That's thriving.
100%, 100%, 100%. And like you mentioned, the power of being kind, right? Like I always say, you need to look at yourself as a bubble of energy moving around, right? With your aura
Mm,
around you.
mm,
And I mean, if your aura is negative, then everywhere you go, you're gonna get bounced, right? Because you're in a negative state, right? And I like being in a positive state because the aura of a positive state is easily integratable in any environment. Right?
absolutely.
So even if you go into an environment where everyone is negative, if you're positive, you're almost charging that room.
Absolutely.
Yes, you might not see that in the moment, right? But you do break some ice. You do decrease the frequency of negativity in that room. And I always look at like your aura or your attitude or your positivity as a ray of sunlight,
Yes.
right? Even if you take your iPhone flashlight to the darkest part in space and you turn it on, you will see it from thousands and thousands of kilometers away. And that's the power of light. And that's the power of
Mm.
positivity.
That's
you
beautiful.
know. So that's kind of like the way I like to look at myself and the way I like to carry myself in the areas where I go. It's not about the response, it's about what you know you are, right? And stars shine differently, but if you can be that one star in the dark space,
Yeah.
then you've done a hell of a good job.
Yeah. And if that's the last thing you do, it's a good thing,
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
And that's a great
100%.
way to try and live your life. It's like, again, I've been asking this question of myself. I ask it of the audience. I ask it of you. Everybody, take this with you. If this was your last day and what you were doing now was the last thing you did, how would you do it?
Mm,
How would you do it? Would you do it well? Would you half-ass it? Would you
mm.
not do it? Ask those questions because
Yeah,
the thing about death, it doesn't come when you expect it. It doesn't
yeah,
come when you have nothing on your to-do list. It doesn't come when everybody's nice to you. It comes randomly and violently.
yeah,
So think about that and use it because it'll change the way you look at people. It'll change the way you
yeah,
look at the morning, the sun, the cold. Just being alive to feel is a
yeah,
gift, you know?
yeah. And to wrap it up, I like what you said there. I'd be alive to feel, right? And I mean, I had a session with my mentor on Monday, and she always says to me, think strategically, but be where your feet are.
Mm,
Feel your feet touch the ground.
that's a
And I
good
think
one.
that's just such a good testament to appreciating the moment and the very existence of being alive, because that is not always guaranteed.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
That's a great quote. Think strategically, but be where your feet are. Is that what she said?
yeah.
Awesome.
And I mean, it's been ringing in my head the whole day. I mean, I've been living that subconsciously, right? But
Yeah,
sometimes to also get conscious of what you've been doing is a really great thing because you can amplify it,
absolutely.
And I think that's why it's good to have other positive people around you and mentors, of which is a topic I want to discuss in the next express session.
Yes, yes.
But
I stole this whole one. I'm sorry. We'll
a
get that
lovely,
one.
very full episode. But yeah, that was such a meaningful sentence for me, and I think it's something we should further unpack.
Yeah. You know what's cool? And like I'll just briefly touch on this. How powerful these little phrases are that and how they can shape our perspectives on life and what
Yeah.
we do, you know? Like the one that I've had in my mind, and the reason I've had it is because I've been listening to this Tony Robbins audio every day. And it's in our moments of decision that we decide our destiny, right?
Wow.
He has a whole like course on this, but truly, like when you think like that, it changes the way you make a decision. Like when you wake up in the morning, are you going to snooze or are you going to get out of bed and get after it? And that
100%.
decision shapes your destiny, you know?
100%. And the
So
rest
yeah,
of your day, right?
absolutely. So like that's also the power of reading and the power of listening is you can find these little golden nuggets that can really shape your life in the direction that you want to go, you know?
Yeah. 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 Just to top it off, they say reading is like putting on bright lights at night when you're driving.
Yeah. Hey, that's a great quote.
It's like it's the
Great.
bright lights that you need when things get dark. So yeah, I mean, I started reading late in my life, and I every time I come across people who um don't read, I feel so sorry for them. I always do my best to encourage and motivate the importance of reading. It often comes across like you're being a nerd or you're just being that guy, but it is literally the most impactful thing you can do for yourself, in life,
Absolutely.
reading, bro.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Even when it keeps you up until midnight and you have
yeah, like you yesterday.
all right. Let's bring it home. Um, I think this was a great show.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you very much.
thank you,
We're going
Vijay.
to start before 7.
Yeah. And tomorrow we'll do it same time. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
all right. That's all for today, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Alex. That was lovely.